Hi, folks, and hang on there just a second. I need to ask the official program observer a question. Are you upset at the 2-year budget deal that was struck between President You're not upset about it. Well, it wasn't long ago you'd have been steaming. You'd have been smoking over it. One of the biggest budget hawks in the EIB network. Nah, I'm not bothered. This is a fascinating case study, in fact, and we're going to address it. The Republicans are also mad. There's some Republicans mad at the budget deal. There are also some Republicans very, very upset today over the Department of Justice sending a letter to Mueller, reminding him what he cannot say, that he cannot go beyond the report, that he should not contradict himself or any of that. And the Republicans are mad because, wait a minute, we wanted to ask him a bunch of questions about why he ignored the Steele dossier and all this other stuff, and the Republicans are kind of ticked that the Trump DOJ is limiting them. I am going to explain both of these things. Greetings, my friends, and welcome. Great to have you on the EIB network as yet another 3-hour excursion into broadcast excellence unfolds. Telephone number 800-282-2882. The email address lrushbo@eibnet.us. So Trump is addressing a group of young conservatives. There's some teenagers in there. There's some 20-year-olds in there. It's in Washington, D.C. It's a Turning Point USA event. And he just did something that is classically subtle, brilliant, and indicates that the president does have some really sharp political instincts. We all know that this lunatic, by the way, have you seen the video of Rashida Tlaib, when she tried to interrupt Trump's rally during the campaign in 2016? This is before she was elected. She was insane. She was a lunatic. She was running around in the green room trying to get out to the stage to disrupt this, just shouting from the top of her lungs. And what everybody has noticed about the video is that she was wearing no bra or the wrong kind of bra. I mean, it was distracting, folks. We're not supposed to get into this kind of thing, because it's now misogynistic and sexist and chauvinistic and all that. But beside the physical, she was a banshee. She was going lunatic. Just the fact that Trump was in town had driven her batty, and she was trying to get through the green room to security people chasing her. She looked like a genuine Code Pink reject. And you have to do a lot to be rejected by Code Pink. Well, anyway. She then went on to become elected. Now she's part of the squad. Trump has rebranded the name of the squad. He's dropped the name squad. He's calling them AOC plus 3. We can decide whether or not we like that or not. But anyway, Rashida Tlaib has just finished a speech talking about how when she goes back to Palestine and this and that, now there is no Palestine, of course. She's one of the anti-Semites extraordinaire. And then she starts yammering on about a mandate $20 an hour minimum wage. Now, I need to correct, I need to give it, given the circumstances as they exist. I've always attempted to explain the fallacies of the minimum wage to people who don't understand them in a different way. I mean, when you talk economic theory, to people, sometimes it goes over their head. Even though economics is nothing more than math, it's just common sense. Math is hard for a lot of people. So explaining how raising the minimum wage costs jobs, I mean, it's clear it does. You can look at the stats, but you try to tell people, and it's that don't understand it, it's hard to get it to compute. If you get into a discussion, okay, you've got a market. People are being paid what they're being paid. A company has so much money to pay all of its employees. There's not a pile of money sitting around being unused in the company. And then all of a sudden some arbitrary figure or entity like a government demands that you give everybody a $5 an hour raise. You don't have the money to do that. So you have to fire somebody or maybe 2 or 3 people because your labor costs are static. Well, that you lose people. Well, why would they have to fire him? That's not fair. They should pay them the money. But they don't have the money to pay them is the point. Yes, they do. Businesses have piles of cash everywhere. look at the people that own businesses. They have jets and they have yachts. No, they don't. You got it wrong. But this is what you're dealing with when you try to explain this to people. So what I always did, when somebody came along and said, we need a $10 an hour minimum wage, it's like, hey, that's great. What about 15? Okay, yeah, even better. I said, okay, how about a $20 minimum wage? Yeah, man. And at some point in this, you'll reach a number where even they will say, no, that's too much. Now, whenever that is, that's when you've won the argument. And that's when you say, why? Why is $25 an hour too much? And the answer you'll get, well, I mean, they're just starting out. They don't have the experience. $25 an hour. I said, how about this? Why don't we just make the minimum wage $75,000? You can't do that. I'm afraid now that no matter what number you give, people would say, yeah. I'm afraid now that if in my little scenario you offer somebody a minimum wage of $50 an hour, if you're talking about it theoretically to people and you're in an argument about it, it used to be that you could give a number, you could reach a number where anybody would say, no, that's too much. It doesn't work. And as I say, at that point, you've won the argument because you ask them why. And the answer they will give you is applicable at any number. Well, it's too much. Well, it's not related to anything they're doing. It's not. That's too much. That's beyond fair. When the concept of fairness enters into this, but we've gotten so many people, young people particularly, in our population so mal-educated and uneducated and propagandized to believe that free markets are by design unfair, that I don't think in an argument about the minimum wage you could reach a figure with too many people that they would reject as too high. Be interesting case study. Anyway, what Trump did, when this banshee starts talking about a $20 minimum wage, Trump, he accepted it and then started referring to it as the official proposal of the Democrat Party. So we have one renegade member of Congress, Rashida Tlaib, proposing and demanding a $20 minimum wage, and Trump recasts it as a Democrat Party proposal because in his world, the squad is the Democrat Party. The squad speaks for the Democrat Party. Or AOC plus 3 speaks for, they are the de facto leaders. And so that's just going to tick. Pelosi's not in favor of a $20 minimum wage for exact reasoning I have given you. They all know, every responsible Democrat knows the minimum wage kills jobs. It's just a political position. It allows them to be on the side of people getting more money. Who can oppose that? The Republicans. The Republicans oppose people getting more. No, the Republicans don't. What the Republicans oppose, what conservatives oppose, is arbitrary, uninvolved people setting the price for labor when they are unaware and unconcerned about any of the factors that actually make the price. It is market activity. It's a bunch of factors that make the price. Have some gigantic entity enter into it arbitrarily and just announce it. So the Democrats know that the minimum wage is a job killer, but that's okay with them. The more people on welfare, the better. More people on unemployment, the better. But the Democrats don't want to be directly tied to economic collapse. So at some point, even the Democrats will reject a ridiculous minimum wage, which $20 an hour is. But here comes Tlaib proposing it, and Trump's, okay, this is what the Democrat Party wants. You won't see this reflected in the drive-by media, but I'm telling you that after Trump did this, within the cloakrooms and the closets and wherever the Democrats go to hide, they are fuming about this. Because the last thing they want is for the squad to become the face of the Democrat Party. Pelosi and her crowd doing everything they can to prevent that from happening, and Trump just keeps elevating them to that position. By the way, we have a poll out, the first poll after Trump's tweets telling him to go home. The Marist poll, Trump went up, job approval, highest ever in that poll. It's 44%. Well, Rush, that ain't so good. That's the highest he's been in this poll, and it's trending up. The point is, Trump didn't go down. Now, I know what some of you were thinking. Rush, don't believe this. This is the media sandbagging Trump. They want him to keep talking this way, so they're going to try to make him think that people support him. Folks, they're not. The people that run the polls do not dare use them that way. The drive-by people we're talking about would never produce a poll result showing Trump going up for any reason if they didn't have to. That just conflicts with every element of their program and their objective and their narrative. Trump's popularity cannot be increasing no matter what, even if it's a trick. Now to one other thing before we get to the budget and Mueller. I don't know how many of you people noticed this, but this is another great opportunity to illustrate how the weather has become so corrupt, politicized, in order to push this silly man-made global warming narrative. What is this? It's Tuesday. So on Sunday, we started getting warnings here in South Florida. Major tropical depression developing off the coast of Florida. Started getting alerts on my phone from all of my weather apps. I said, what the hell is this? So I went and looked at it. And sure enough, it was a thunderstorm with 30-mile-an-hour winds. And the National Weather Service had plotted it as a developing tropical system. It had an L with a circle around it. You know what that means? Low pressure area. There were thunderstorms that went through the Midwest yesterday that were worse than what we faced off the coast of Florida the past 2 days. It was an absolute joke. So last night, the cone for this thing had this tropical storm going right by my house. I mean, skirting my beach, upsetting the turtles and anything that might have been out there. So I made it a point to look. There wasn't enough rain to fill a thimble. There was about a 10-minute lightning storm. It was never even completely fully overcast. I went to the radar. I went to the cloud satellite phone. There was nothing there. It was a passing. It wasn't even a solid block of green on the radar. And green is the lightest rain when you get into the yellows and reds, that when it gets heavy. There wasn't any red. There wasn't any yellow. It was just green, and it was spotty. There was no tropical depression. There was no developing tropical depression. Now, there might have been a low-pressure area, and in any low-pressure area, the wind circulation is the same direction as in a hurricane. A hurricane is just a massive low-pressure area. They want to be able to say that there were all of these numbers of systems this year, these numbers of tropical depressions, tropical storms, hurricanes, because the numbers add up, and then they can more easily claim man-made climate change is responsible. The National Hurricane Center even had a cone graphic track map for this thunderstorm. And it was, by now, it was going to be threatening, quote unquote, the Georgia, South Carolina coast. Well, I looked at it today, and it's died. They've got an X off the coast of Cape Canaveral. They've got an X in a white circle, and 11 a.m. Tuesday. They're putting a date and a marker on something that isn't. It's an X. If you look here for X, current information X, what does X mean? You can't find what X means. What's the wind? Maximum sustained winds 35 miles an hour. That's what the winds were at the golf tournament in Ireland on Sunday. We get a tropical storm. Well, they didn't issue official warnings, but the drive-by media people went nuts with this. Folks, I'm telling you, I went out there and looked at it last night. It was zooming right by the house. It was right by. It skirted the ocean, this forecast map. There weren't any waves, and there was nothing out there. The lightning was way offshore. It was a great lightning show for 10 minutes, but it was never even fully overcast. And I remember I had to get the dogs out before. You don't want to take the dogs out when it's raining. Get the dogs out, take them out at 11 o'clock. So I looked at this thing. So, okay, I'm going to get them out there at 10:45. The rain never even happened. Nothing happened. Now, I don't think a whole lot of people were revved up for it anyway. I don't think that the efforts here to promote this thing got to the point where there were mad dashes on grocery stores, picking up all the bottled water and all the batteries, people hoarding things, the things that usually happens. Because this thing was actually undersold. I think they just created a nothing out of a thunderstorm system that was over the ocean so they can add it as a stat so they can say that we've had 2 tropical storms to date or 3, because the more the better, the more the easier it is to say that the man-made climate change circumstances are creating more of these storms. But they have to manufacture the storm. I mean, this was a joke. Yeah, I'm gonna take it. Right, I'm gonna hold this up. We could have shot a screenshot of this baby. No, I don't know where. I can't zoom in. I don't have the zoom control in here. I wasn't thinking. I should have taken a screenshot of this because it's funny. This little X off the coast of Cape Canaveral. Anyway, let me take a break. We'll come back next up. I'll explain this budget business to you. Not that you're going to like it, but I'll explain it to you. And, of course, set up for Mueller and DOJ issuing a reminder, hey, Bob, don't lie when you testify tomorrow. Just stick to what you've said in the report. The Democrats are going to do, I know where they're going to go in Mueller's testimony to try to make it look like something new has happened or been discovered or is being said. Sit tight, folks. Back with more in a moment.
Unfiltered and unstoppable. Rush on the EIB Network.
And welcome back. R.R.S, your guiding light, a household name in all 4 corners of the world. Mr. Program Observer, can I interrupt for one? When, and I'm serious, it's not a trick question. I'm not looking for any specific answer on what your memory is. When is the last time that you recall anybody, conservative, Republican think tank, when is the last time anybody has really, really, really been upset over government spending? When's the last time you can remember it? Before the Bush years. Now, the last time I remember was Obama. When Obama comes up with the porculus bill, is when people went nuts. But I think what people went nuts about was Obama's lying and misrepresentation about it. He called it a stimulus. There was no way it could be a stimulus because he was going to take money. I mean, the government doesn't even have a pile of money that's not being used, folks. There's no way to stimulate the economy the way Obama tried to tell people he was doing. In order for Obama to get $800 billion for his stimulus, he had to take it first or print it. That he had to take it from elsewhere in the economy, either in taxes, which he raised, and then had all kinds of new spending for Obamacare. And it was that which led to the creation of the Tea Party. And the Tea Party, which, I was reading about this over the Tea Party is still being sullied and impugned and maligned. Exactly along the lines of what I said yesterday. The Tea Party, which was average, ordinary Americans, had never been in politics before. They had never been activists. This was the beauty of it. This was the power of it. They were not professional political people or employees. They were just outraged over Obama. They were outraged over this wanton spending with seemingly no concern and no even imaginary limitations and what that might mean for their children and their grandchildren. The Tea Party is being portrayed as the alt-right, white nationalist, racist movement even now. But hang on, we're just getting started here. So follow along here. Tea Party gets started. Tea Party takes over. Tea Party secures the Republican control of the House of Representatives in 2010, a 50-vote margin. It was overwhelming, and Democrats and media immediately began targeting the Tea Party as a bunch of racist, sexist bigots, which is the default. And even reading about the Tea Party over the weekend, they're now being tied to the alt-right and the white nationalists, white supremacists, which are such a tiny, tiny, tiny minority of the so-called Republican coalition. but they're being positioned as the mainstream, while at the same time the left-wing extremists are being ignored and tamped down, and Pelosi and Schumer are being built up as the moderate, normal, standard Democrat issue. None of this is correct, as I addressed yesterday. But let's go back. The Tea Party comes into being for a lot of reasons, but spending was one of the things that woke them all up. Now, these are people that had never been in organized politics before. They had voted, but they had not donated to anything. They had not, they maybe go to town halls once in a while. But these were the essence of citizen involvement in government. They were not being paid. They were not on anybody's donor list or any of that. And that's what gave them power. There was no leader. There was no Tea Party leader. There was no figurehead responsible for it. It was an effervescent, natural eruption of conservative citizens of all ages, religions, creeds, sexes, orientations, you name it. It scared the hell out of Washington, D.C. long before Donald Trump came along and scared the hell out of Washington, D.C., precisely because it couldn't be controlled. You couldn't demonize the Tea Party by taking out one person, the leader. Remember, the Democrats had a march, and I'm getting to the budget aspect of this in just a second. Democrats had a march for some legislation in Washington. They marched in unison, Nancy Pelosi, and they put the congressional black Caucasians in the front of the lines. And then Pelosi, and they're marching over to the House to have a vote on something. You got John Lewis in there, and as many Democrats that had ties back to Martin Luther King. When the march was over, the members of the Congressional Black Caucasians said that the crowd had spat on them. There was no evidence for it. The entire thing had been videotaped. Nobody spit on anybody. But the Congressional Black Caucasians and Pelosi did a press conference, wringing their hands, worried so much about the impending racism of the Tea Party because they showed up to disrespect the civil rights coalition of the Democrat Party led by John Lewis. And he personally said that he had been spit on after he had been beat upside the head or some such thing. And it didn't happen. So the demonization of the Tea Party began almost immediately after their discovery. Washington and even some of the Republican Party were scared to death of them, precisely because they couldn't be controlled, because there was no leader. There then became a lot of groups that came along and tried to commandeer the identity of leader. How many not think tanks, but how many PACs were created with Tea Party in the name? So many people wanted to get in front of it and make themselves look like they were the intellectual energy behind the Tea Party. There wasn't. It was just a mass movement at the same time by average, ordinary Americans. And it was spending that got them, it was Obama's stimulus and then health care that scared the hell out of them. Well, eventually the Republicans listened, and the Republicans started attacking Obama on the spending, and the Republicans started attacking the Democrats in general, and the budget deal after budget. We had reconciliation. We didn't have budgets. We didn't do budgets. The Democrats found a way out of having to do budgets. There were no debates. People got even more infuriated. So the Republicans, listening to the Tea Party, realizing what a voting bloc it was, actually began talking spending discipline. And what happened? Remember the last time during all of that, remember the time the Republicans offered a plan to address the deficit after Obama's stimulus and after Obama's Obamacare? What did Democrats do? The Democrats prepared an ad showing Paul Ryan pushing a grandmother in a wheelchair over the cliff. We all got outraged by it. Some people laughed at it. Some Republicans, come on, Rush, nobody's going to take that seriously. I've been hearing this my entire career. Come on, Rush, nobody's going to take what the Democrats do seriously. Nobody's going to fall for that. And yet here we are. A lot of people have fallen for a lot of Democrat crap over the last 50 years. And here we are. And after the Paul Ryan wheelchair ad, then we had all kinds of similar kind of ads. Republicans were going to starve the kids. Republicans were going to foul the water. Whatever the spending cuts, Republicans were going to take Social Security away from people. Republicans were going to deny old people their housing allowances. This is what happened. So the Republicans quickly, there was no way, they didn't know how to win this. They didn't know how to, the media, which is the Democrat Party, running all these free ads showing Paul Ryan pushing a grandmother in a wheelchair over a cliff. So now here we are, and that's just one example. If you think back, I'm sure you can remember all of the examples. All of the outrageous ads the Democrats created, all of the lies that were told about Republican proposed spending cuts, about Republican spending discipline, and the Republicans had no idea how to fight back. They had no idea how to overcome it. And so the idea of spending discipline, getting rid of the deficit, as far as average Americans who watch the drive-by media concerned, became the same as taking health care away from grandma and basically killing her, taking food away from kids and basically letting them starve. So now let's fast forward to the present, and we are a year and a half away from a presidential election, and it's time to do a budget. And the Trump White House decides, we don't want any of this crap that the Democrats do happening during a presidential reelection year. We don't want any commercials of Trump throwing grandma over the cliff. We don't want to deal with any of this crap right now. We've got enough on our plates. We're not going to balance the budget in a year and a half anyway. We're not going to get rid of the national debt. We're not going to get rid of the deficit in a year and a half. We know how the Democrats act. We know how the media is going to amplify and assist the Democrats. How do you, at the same time, how do you talk about balancing the budget? How do you talk about the deficit when your opposition is promising to give everything away to everybody, including free health care for illegal immigrants? How do you talk about spending discipline and the deficit with a media famous for destroying economies and jobs, favoring policies which destroy economies and jobs? And when you keep in mind that this is the Democrat agenda requires as many people in need as they can create. The Democrat agenda requires poverty. The Democrat agenda requires people unable to cope with day-to-day life. The Democrat Party requires more and more people living in economic despair. That circumstance allows the Democrats to blame the Republicans for it and then propose even more programs and even a more benevolent, gigantic government to take care of all the people the Republicans don't care about. When the American people want to rein in spending, they will elect Republicans in landslides for decades. Democrats won't even work with Trump on closing the border. What was Trump supposed to do? I'm playing devil's advocate. Is Trump supposed to go to the mat on spending a year and a half away from the election? Is he supposed to go to the mat? Is he supposed to enforce this and bring the Democrats along and try to negotiate with Pelosi on reducing spending, on getting rid of some entitlements, whatever it would take? And you can't balance a budget or make serious inroads in bringing down the national debt without doing something about entitlements, which means going after Social Security and going after Medicare and going after all these wonderful entitlement programs. The Democrats are just begging. They're just lying in wait for the Democrats and for the Republicans to do this. The Democrats will not work with Trump on closing the border. Obama doubled the national debt. The Democrats cheered. They didn't care one whit about it. Ryan talked about the Democrats ran ads implying he wanted to murder grandmothers. So I think a political calculation was made to not give the Democrats and the media such a gigantic, easy-to-hit target, particularly when there still isn't any know-how or effort or seemingly any effort among a majority of Republicans to know how or even to try to push back against this. Now, I understand that many people are upset, but about making this deal with Pelosi, adding $320 billion of spending. The deal is $320 billion. White House congressional negotiators reached an accord on a 2-year budget on Monday that would raise spending by $320 billion over existing caps, would allow the government to keep borrowing, most likely averting a fiscal crisis, but splashing still more red ink on an already surging. Now, see, this is a New York Times story. All of a sudden, the New York Times concerned about this because they think they can lay it off on Trump. Trump just made a deal with the Democrats, but you would never know that the Democrats have anything to do with this if you read the New York Times. It's all Trump. So no matter which way the Republicans go, the media is going to trash them as either irresponsible spenders creating red ink or people killing grandmothers and starving kids. And you don't want that going into an election year. And what this is a classic textbook example of how Washington works. Buried in the 8th paragraph is this little detail. The agreement would raise spending by about $320 billion compared with the strict spending levels established in the Budget Control Act of 2011 and set to go into effect next year without legislative action. In other words, 8 years ago was when? 2011, right after the Tea Party erupts, right after the 2010 midterms where the Democrats got shellacked and lost control of the House. 8 years ago, Congress voted to limit spending beginning in 2020. But as usual, Congress has since changed its mind, and they're going to allow a mere $320 billion more in spending over the previous 2011 agreement. And that's what essentially Trump agreed to. Now, we've got stories out there, conservatives livid over spending increase, conservatives angry at Trump for this, and then there are conservatives who are being blamed for not forcing the issue, not remaining vigilant as conservatives against the spending. Nobody's been vigilant about it. I've concluded that this spending issue, well, I don't have time to get at it fully here, but I've been hearing my whole life how it's going to wreck us and how it's destroy us, the national debt, the deficit's going to ruin us. And so far, none of that's happened. At some point it's got to, but it hasn't happened when the experts have told us it's going to. Anyway, do you want to see more ads of Trump pushing Granny over the cliff? Well, I mean, this is the you know what the Democrats would do with this. Look, brief timeout. We'll come back, and is it time? Yes, we'll delve into the great unknown of the flashing yellow lights on our call board after this.
America's most listened to talk radio host. RRush LLimbaugh. On the EIB network.
And welcome back, Rush Limbaugh. As always, talent on loan from God. All right, here we go to the phones. We're going to start in Roanoke, Virginia. This is Al. Welcome, sir. It's great to have you with us. Hi.
Hey, Rush. How you doing? Great to be on. I got to tell you right from the start, just to give you a couple things. I was a former elected official, local level in Roanoke, and I was a financial hawk. I mean, we were not going to go into deficits. I always voted against the budget. I always asked that we do not spend more than we have. Your comments right now kind of upset me because that is the role of the Republican Party and of Trump. His role is not to be scared about what they're going to say about him, and he has shown that he doesn't really mind what people say about him. So all the ads of pushing grandmother over the thing, that should not bother Republicans, and it should definitely not bother Trump. That's his role. We appreciate the guts he has. But on this, I think the thing is Republicans like spending money. I don't think they're scared about ads. I think they want to spend money, and I think they.
Oh no! Wait! Now you may be right. Wait! You may be right that they like spending money, but do not doubt me. They are scared to death of the ads and the media. That's
Rush. I disagree.
Well, you can disagree all you want, but they are. There isn't a Republican who wants to be Paul Ryan in the Granny Over the Cliff ad that comes next.
Rush, you're putting too much emphasis on that. I was in a local county supervisors. We had 5 Republicans. They want to spend money. They like spending money. And
I'm not disagreeing with you about that.
But that's the bigger point. The lesser point is the ads. They want to spend money because they want to get reelected, and we have to stop that. But I think giving them cover. My thing is, I think you kind of give them a little cover by saying, they're worried about the ads and stuff. I don't think we should give them cover. It's not time. The time is now. We keep going into this debt issue. We cover the Republicans by saying, they don't want to be.
Wait a minute. Why haven't you been concerned about all of Trump's spending for the last 2.5 years? Why haven't I heard from you before today?
Believe me, I have. I just can't get into your show every day. But I'm totally upset about it. The Republicans do this all the time. They need to start voting against the budgets all the time. They need to make a big deal of it, and they don't. And Trump, he loves spending money. Now, I love a lot of the other things that Trump does.
Okay, look, I don't mean to be rude, but I really have no time. This is one of these breaks that doesn't float here.
Work that the
Thank you, Al.
American media just won't do. Rush on the EIB network.
Yes. I know I'm going to get ripped to shreds. I'm not trying to get ripped to shreds. I'm just trying to, infuse, shoot up some common sense into this. Let me ask you this. What do you mean, yes, sir? What's going on in there? What is the matter? What's the matter in there? I know they're unhappy with my position. I'm just trying to explain the reality of things. Let me ask you this question. So you're getting a lot of calls of people angry at me. All right. I'm just asking to open the question. Was Trump elected as a budget hawk? Was Trump elected? I'm just asking, did anybody remember the campaign, Trump promising to balance the budget, get federal spending down, to get rid of the deficit? Anybody remember? Does anybody remember Trump articulating conservative principles and theory on spending at any point in the campaign? Who did? Who was, and what happened to him? Okay, I'm just asking. So Snerdley says that you all are loaded for bear out there for me. I knew I was going to be running the risk by mentioning the Paul Ryan Granny commercial. You can't win here. If I come out here and say, hey, the Republicans don't care about the media, screw the media. You got to do what's right. You're going to go out there and you got to cut the budget. You got to go out there and you got to slash the deficit. You got to go out. And then when the commercials start, the same people call me, why don't the Republicans tell the media to go to hell? Why don't the Republicans tell the media pocket it? Why don't the Republicans respond to the why don't you make the media stop it? You want me to make the media stop doing what they're doing? Okay, look, we're going to get back to this, but I got to do something else first, folks, because there was an amazing segment on Fox today. Frank Siller, who is responsible for and is the daily operations director of the Tunnel to Towers Foundation, appeared on Fox. As you know, yesterday I was able to announce, because of the goodness of all of you in this audience, that we were able to increase the charitable donation to Tunnel to Towers that's being generated by this overwhelming response to the Stand Up for Betsy Ross t-shirt, which It's not stopping. We have reached a gross dollar amount that is going to it's going to result in another increase to the charity, and this is not a profit pursuit for us here. There are 250 knockoff shirts, or that's a total of how many there have been. It's something that everybody's trying to get in on. 250 different fraudsters attempting to sell what they're trying to make people think they have the authentic Stand Up for Betsy Ross T-shirt, but they don't. There's only one place to get it. Catherine is doing the logistics and the supply chain on this, and this has gone so far beyond expectations that we are hustling to make sure that every shirt we get and have printed, the Stand Up for Betsy Ross and the flag, is the exact shirt that everybody else gets. So those have to be manufactured, and the vendor has to actually print the shirts, ship them to us. We have to get the sizes correct in terms of what sizes sell most. It's been it's been one of the most fun undertakings, but it has become 100 times larger than anybody ever thought it would, and it continues. So the Tunnel to Towers people appeared on a segment on Fox and Friends today to explain what's being done with the money that's been raised from the sale of the T-shirts. It's a $27 item here. That's resulted in a charitable donation of $2 million in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks. So we start off. Here is Steve Ducey, first of a few sound bites here.
Congratulations, RRush LLimbaugh, through the generosity of people who have bought that T-shirt, is donating $2 million and counting to Tunnel to Towers.
It's unbelievable. What that has done for our foundation is beyond words. Him and his wife, Catherine, are taking the goodness of America, letting the people push back, because we're sick and tired of people bashing America. And
in particular, Colin Kaepernick, Nike, the Betsy Ross shoe.
All that. But it's much more than that. You just saw pictures of police officers getting water thrown upon them, the disrespect that goes around. And these great Americans put their lives on the line for us every single day. So not only is RRush and Catherine reaching out to the goodness of America, because of this money donated to the Tunnel to Towers Foundation, we're taking care of the greatness of America, these people who serve our country.
And again, just specify, this is not a donation from Catherine and me. This is the result of millions. Well, we're not yet millions, but hundreds of thousands of people purchasing the Stand Up for Betsy Ross T-shirt. And everybody involved in this is as grateful as I've ever seen people great, because it's so unexpected, so unforecast. Ainsley Earhart next said to Frank Siller, "Tell us what you're doing. How does this all work?"
6 great heroes that we could pay off their mortgages immediately.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and the beauty of it, some have been waiting for a while. Like, we have a police officer, Stephen DeSario from Kirkland, Ohio. His wife was pregnant with their 7th child when he was killed, responding to a crazy man with a gun. And so 2 weeks after they buried him, the wife had the 7th child.
7th child.
Arizona Deputy Marshal, U.S. Marshal Chase White, served his country and also has 4 children left behind serving a warrant. This year died in January 16, 2019, Army warrant officer Jonathan Farmer. 4 Americans were killed that day. One of them was a family friend of ours. We grew up, Shannon Kent. But Tabitha was left behind with her 4 children. We're going to pay off that mortgage. Kissimmee police officer Matt Baxter left behind a wife, and she was a police officer too. His wife, wow. 3 beautiful kids. Arizona firefighter Mitch Lundgaard, who was responding and saved somebody's life, and the person was revived and ended up killing that firefighter. Well, he saved that person's life. And Auburn, Alabama police officer William Buchner survived by his wife and 2 children. Many of those people coming to the Tunnel to Towers run.
Right. What's being told here is these people's mortgages are being paid off, which is such a huge deal. And they weren't through. The conversation continued.
They're already
Members in
going through
America.
so much. They're left behind with children. They're faced with bills. They have to pay for the funeral. They have to pay for college. They have to pay for their houses. So you are taking that burden away from them. God bless you for doing this.
Well, God bless Rush and Catherine. Go keep on buying the Betsy Ross shirts because we're going to get all
That's
those
right.
proceeds to help. I want to be here in another week to say we're going to take care of 6 more of these great
What is
heroes.
it, RushLimbaughStore.com?
Yes, Rush Limbaugh's.
RushLimbaughShowStore.com.
You can go to his
got it.
website and find it on the website.
And there's just one more here. Finally, it's Ducey with the opening here, the final bite.
You've been here before to announce that you have paid off one person's mortgage. Have you ever been able to do 6 at once?
Not 6 at once like this.
This is
You know,
unbelievable.
it is unbelievable because, a lot of these we've started fundraising on some of these here, and sometimes it takes us 6 months, 9 months to raise all the months. Now this takes care of 6 mortgages that we've already started fundraising
Who would have
on.
thought a little T-shirt would have gone this far?
Yeah,
you know?
well, it's more. It stands for a lot.
It does.
It
It
represents
does.
so much about the goodness of America. That T-shirt, that flag, and the great
There
people
are
that are
good
helping.
people out there, yeah.
There are a lot of good people.
Yeah, whoever thought the Betsy Ross flag would ever be controversial? 13 colonies.
All right, so they've raised $2 million for you and counting. If you'd like to help, once again, RushLimbaughShowStore.com. Frank, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rush.
Thank you.
All right. And Catherine.
And Catherine, for sure.
The question, who would have ever thought the Betsy Ross flag would ever be so controversial? That's it. Exactly. What in the heck did Betsy Ross ever do to? She didn't bust the budget. She just created the first flag with the 13 colonies represented by a circle of stars in the blue quadrant next to the stripes, the red and white stripes. And here comes Nike creating some 4th of July tennis shoes with that flag on the back. And Colin Kaepernick, I don't like those. I think that symbol is racist. And so Nike, Colin doesn't like them. Okay, we're going to put them on the shelves. We're not going to sell them. Now, they're going to become collector's items. You know this, however many pairs they made. I still think this was a Nike PR effort that was meant to once again elevate Kaepernick and keep him in the news. I mean, this doesn't make any sense otherwise. But one person tell a gigantic corporation what they can and can't sell. I mean, if Nike was so woke, if Nike was so sensitive to social justice warriorship, why would they create the shoes in the first place? Why wouldn't they know that Kaepernick and many of their other clients would be objecting to the shoe? But they made it anyway, the whole thing. But I'm glad they did. I'm glad they did because it gave us the opportunity to stand up to it. And again, you all have just blown the doors off here in such a short period of time. And again, since this little appearance on Fox this morning, thousands and thousands more orders have come in. You know what I've been thinking of doing? Bernie Sanders had to cut some of his campaign staff because they're complaining that he's not paying them minimum wage. And he cut some of their hours. I've been thinking we need some help with fulfillment. I've been thinking of reaching out to the Bernie Sanders staff has been laid off, saying, hey, would you like to come down to South Florida and help us fulfill some orders for the Stand Up for Betsy Ross shirt? If Bernie's going to mistreat you, if Bernie's going to disrespect you, if Bernie's not going to even pay you what he's promising to give the American people if he's elected, and how would you like to work on a real American project instead of the Bernie campaign? I'd love to building a bridge from us to the Bernie Sanders campaign and accomplish. We've got a massive fulfillment effort here, folks. We're lucky we constructed a full UPS truck today showed up. This guy's sole delivery today was to our warehouse, and it's a massive project with the supply chain involved here and making sure that orders get turned around, stuffed, fulfilled, and sent out as quickly as possible. Because our store is known for the quick turnaround. If you buy something at RushLimbaughh.com, you may get it the next day. You may get it in 2 days. We can't afford for this to take weeks for people to get the shirt. They want it now. We want them out there as quickly as we can get them. Anyway, brief time out, and we'll go to the phones. We'll go to the phones, and I will take my medicine rather than go to Mueller and what I think is going to happen. We got lots of time to get to that. So you want to have at me, have at me. What'll happen when we get back?
Rush Limbaugh, bringing America the truth on the EIB network.
The emails I just looked at during the... You only play those Fox bites to make yourself look good because you know you're going to get ripped to shreds by people on your budget stance. No, folks, I could have played those items first when the program began. You know, I very seldom like to make this program about me. We always do the issues first. Anyway, where are we now? We're going to go Peoria, Illinois. Eric, as we go back to the phones, thank you for waiting, and it's great to have you with us. Hi.
Good afternoon, Rush. I just wanted to let you know that, and the listeners know that if they think your fundraiser is not legit or anything, Thursday when you had made the announcement about how much you'd raised, on the local news here on the radio, the same station I listened to you on, we had an officer killed early last month. The name was Tony Chisholm. He was a sheriff for the Fulton County Sheriff's Department, and during that news broadcast, they had come on and told us that Tunnels to Towers was paying off his family's mortgage.
Well, that's great. That's, our philosophy here at the EIB network is go big or go home.
Yeah, but I honestly believe that your efforts and everybody's combined efforts had made this happen because, it's in timing with the infusion of cash that got to help people.
Well, I appreciate the call, and look. Nobody is saying it's not legitimate. I hope I haven't gotten that impression. There haven't been any critics of this. Well, I take it back. There have some people in the radio business are jealous. I saw in a radio trade magazine somebody said this is not. I mean, Nike's a $16 billion corporation. You think they're worried about Limbaugh? This is like it's like a fly on an elephant's butt and so forth. I've seen, little incremental things like that, but nobody is saying it's illegitimate. It's actually an incredible testament to the people in the audience. I mean, you're the ones who are doing this. We've got a $27 item. And look, folks, there are a lot of expenses. The shirts have a net cost. There's shipping. There's the labor cost. We've got a lot of people. We've got 40 to 50 people working in fulfillment. We've got the warehouse. We've got all kinds of expenses here. So essentially, this is not a pursuit of profit. What we've always said is that a portion of the proceeds go to, and as it grew and grew and grew, and expanded well beyond anybody's expectations, we've just thrown whatever's left to the charity, and we're up to $2 million and counting now. The gross numbers would blow your mind in a 2-week period. Would literally blow your mind. The number of orders and the gross dollars would blow your mind. I don't want to get into that because the only number that really matters is the net, which is the charitable donation. $2 million in 2 weeks on a $27 item. You are the ones making all of this happen. And these are people, the recipients are people who have lost their lives in 9/11 or in war, or as Frank Siller said, first responders. And this charity has a little bit different approach. They try to help with daily expenses by paying off mortgages. When you have a head of household, male or female, killed in action, that's and you've got a young family and a new home. Perhaps you just started in your home and you've got your 30-year, 25-year mortgage. It's daunting. And so what Tunnel to Towers does, among other things, is try to pay off mortgages, and 6 of them. 6 mortgages. They've never been able to retire 6 mortgages in a period of 2 weeks before. And I played the sound bites primarily so that those of you who are participating would know what you're doing. You deserve to have every amount of feel-good and pride in this as you can muster. Here's Joseph in Marietta, Ohio. Great to have you on the program, sir. Hello.
Yeah, Rush. No, thanks for taking my call and everything, but I got to say that I'm very disappointed with you about the whole thing with the budget, because I think what the RNC should be doing, if they had any cojones and if they had an actual backbone, if they really cared, they would be running advertisements about the Democrats starring Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Elizabeth Warren, and, you know, the whole Maoist and Stalinist crowd of the Democrat Party, they would have them throwing babies and children off the Golden Gate Bridge to symbolize what they're doing with our national debt and our deficits.
Well, it's kind of a two-way street, though. I mean, the Republicans have agreed with every Democrat continuing resolution. That's one of the reasons that we all got ticked off. There wasn't even any budgeting. It was all a new continuing resolution every 2 to 3 months. Remember, they would tell us at the end, we'll get them next time. We can't do it now because it's the holidays. We can't do it now because it's a military portion of the budget. Well, we can't do it now because this or that. But we'll get them we'll kick the can down the road. We'll get them the next time. And they never got them the next time. The Republicans are complicit in this.
Yeah, and my whole
and the RNC right now is Donald Trump. The president of the United States runs the party of which he's a member. The RNC is Trump. It's his people over there. So when you say you wish the RNC was running ads with Democrats throwing kids off the Golden Gate Bridge, what you're saying is you wish Trump would start doing that. We don't even have to do that. We just need to run ads showing what they're doing with abortion. But you want to focus on spending.
Well, that's another thing. That would kill two birds with one stone. Throw a little thing with abortion in there. But my whole thing, too, is that I'm worried because I see history repeating itself like 2007 and 2008 when George Bush, he signed every filthy spending bill that the Democrats sent up to him. And the media, they exonerated the Democrats. And then that begot us Barack Obama, who voted for those exact same bills when he was in the Senate.
Yeah, and except for the war, voted for all the stuff that Bush wanted. But what was Bush doing with all that, do you think?
Well, it wasn't just the war. I mean, the Dems, they had all their pork.
No, I mean, with the spending bills that you're upset about that came out of the Bush, what was he doing? Why was he doing it, do you think?
Well, there was the war.
Why hasn't there been any fiscal responsibility in Washington since you and I have been alive? Other than the early 90s when the Republicans won the House in 1994, they balanced the budget 3 years later. And then they blew up. Then they retired and they went their separate ways and the whole thing blew up. And then here, the 95 budget deal, when Republicans began to starve children, is when this whole thing went south.
I know, and it's funny how the mainstream media always blow smoke up the rear of Bill Clinton, how he balanced the budget. I always tell my liberal friends, you can thank Newt Gingrich and Bill Frist.
Well, you see, you're kind of making my point here. Like going back all of this time, remembering all of the failures, all the media.
We now take you behind the scenes at Hillary for President.
Now, one thing, although this is gonna be in the weeds, and you critics out there are gonna accuse me of trying to confuse and muddy the water. Here's the spending cap deal that this budget agreement that Trump and Pelosi supposedly made. The thing about the budget cap deal, it prevents, this is a deal goes back to 2011. This is 8 years ago. This is after the Tea Party is formed, comes into existence. This is after the Republicans have swamped the Democrats in the 2010 midterms. Remember, the Republicans took back control of the House. And it was largely due to Obamacare and the stimulus, and people were fed up with this blatant. I mean, Obama was making no bones about his mission. He was going to grow spending. He was going to grow the government, and that was going to be the key to everything. If you remember back then, the Democrat theory of Keynesian economics was government spending, government spending, government spending. That's how you came out of a recession. That's how you built the economy. Government spending, government spending, government spending. We were all throwing our hands up in frustration. No, it's not. It is not how you grow the economy. Making the government a bigger percentage of GDP is not how you grow the economy. It's how you grow government. And Obama was making no bones about his intention. Here comes the Tea Party demanding Republican fiscal responsibility. They tried. They started providing more than lip service on balancing the budget. That's when the ads started coming with Paul Ryan sending grandma over the cliff in a wheelchair, and that was just one of them. The Republican Party thinks they got destroyed in the arena of public opinion with the media distorting their efforts, just like happened in 1995. They think they got destroyed over the starving kids' school lunch cuts that weren't. There were no cuts in the school lunch program. There were simply reductions in the rate of growth. We've been through all of this so many times. And I've asked people every year on this program, because every year, up until Trump, you know what one Democrat media criticism has been absent in the 2.5 years of Trump. Now, seriously, I mean, there may be isolated exceptions to this example, but in these 2.5 years of Trump, we have not heard a constant refrain of how Republicans hate people via budget cuts. We have not heard how Republicans want to starve, how Republicans want to kick seasoned citizens out of their homes. We haven't heard any of this. We haven't heard what was a 50-year refrain. Every time a spending debate came up, it was textbook what was going to happen. Republicans are going to kick seniors out of their homes. They were going to deny people Social Security. They were going to starve children. They were going to stop paying attention to the environment. You name it. Now, those criticisms, those false allegations have been replaced by new ones. Trump hates kids, separates families, cages them, but it's baseless. Just as the budget criticisms were baseless. But in these 2.5 years, the Republicans have not been criticized for the same things that every other Republican has been criticized for 50 years. The Democrats and the media have shifted. And, you know, now Trump is just a full-fledged racist, a bigot, a white nationalist, or what have you. But there isn't any serious accusation that Trump wants to kill people with the budget and with spending cuts. So this spending cap deal prevents spending limits that Congress voted on in 2011 from being automatically implemented next year, the next year being 2020. They did a deal in 2011, a spending cap deal preventing spending limits that they voted on in 2011 from being automatically implemented next year. This deal was buried in the 8th paragraph of a Washington Post story today. Quote the agreement. I shared this with you in the first hour. The agreement would raise spending by about $320 billion compared with the strict spending levels established in the Budget Control Act of 2011, set to go into effect next year without legislative action. This was the deal that was struck after the stimulus, after the Republicans took control of the House. They came up with a budget deal that would prevent that would dictated spending all the way through 2020. And it limited the amount of spending. And Obama went along with it because he knew that there would be any number of opportunities to break it, what with the continuing resolution technique and all that. But the total that we're talking about here is $320 billion. In other words, 8 years ago, Congress voted to limit spending in 2020. They kicked the can down the road. In 2011, Congress, with the agreement of the Obama White House, agreed to budget responsibility 8 years. That's after Obama's out of office, long after he's out of office. I don't know if you'll remember this, but at the time we were livid because this gave Obama a pass. The spending limits would occur after he leaves office in 2020. So what's happened is those limits were blown up in the new deal. And so now $320 billion can be spent because Congress changed its mind. And they're going to allow $320 billion more in spending over the previous 2011 agreement. Now, the next thing I'm going to say is not going to sit well with some of you, but it needs to be mentioned. $320 billion is not, in comparison to the national budget every year, it used to be what the deficit was. Back in the 80s, $320 billion was the deficit. The whole budget now is $4 to $5 trillion. This is chump change. The amount of new spending that's been agreed to is chump change. It's not a new trillion. It's not even a new $500 billion. I don't expect to be understood on this. I expect, Mr. Snerdley, you're going to get a new round of phone calls from people, but I'm trying to put all this in perspective because this all centers on something that happened in 2011. After the Republicans took control of the House, they got Obama to agree to spending cuts starting in 2020. The deal that was made yesterday eliminates that and substitutes $320 billion in new spending, not trillions, $320 billion over the previous 2011 agreement. And the Democrats complained that Obama didn't spend enough. They wanted 5 or 10 times more of that. These people were out there advocating, if you'll remember, when the Obama economy was languishing at 1% GDP growth every year, all of these favored leftist economists led by Paul Krugman were all claiming that Obama wasn't spending anywhere. The stimulus wasn't enough. It needed to be 3 times that big to make any difference. Now, let me give you an alternative way of looking at this. If you don't like my what would I call it? My positioning of if the Republicans went to the mat on spending with a year and a half out in the presidential race, and I asked you to remember the Paul Ryan pushing his grandma over the cliff ad, do you want that kind of stuff in the presidential campaign? Obviously, Trump doesn't. Republicans don't. But here's an alternative way of explaining what happened. I could have done it this way. I'll try it this way. We'll see how this registers. Trump announced that his administration and congressional leadership, consisting of McConnell, Schumer, Pelosi, and McCarthy, reached a budget and debt ceiling deal with no poison pills through July 2021, amounting to approximately $2.7 trillion. The president said the deal was a real compromise in order to give another big victory to the military and our great veterans. The agreement includes $738 billion for defense spending next year, followed by $740 billion in defense spending in 2021. Non-defense spending was set at $632 billion in 2020 and $634.5 billion in 2021. Trump and the GOP stood their ground. Now we have a deal that benefits the country, benefits the media, prevents a bunch of wasteful shutdowns, and keeps us secure. If you are a Trump supporter, this is how you would look at this budget deal. If you're not a Trump supporter, or if you're not fully aware of what's happening, you can look at the way the media is reporting this and think that Trump is totally caved for whatever reasons on this. Now, Trump has also said, and I know many of you probably got a laugh out of it, but Trump has also said that in his next term, we're going to get serious about spending reductions. Now, I know every politician in the world has made a similar commitment and promise. So you have a number of different ways you can look at this as a really good deal for the U.S. military, for an end to shutdowns, for an end to all of the continuing resolutions that hamstrung the country every 3 to 6 months. And it happened with a year and a half to go in the presidential campaign, so it cannot become a legitimate campaign issue. If you want to find good news in it, you can. And that's what this is, a full service program providing you any number of ways at looking at the same story and helping you fight against And remember how the fake news tries to position everything to lure you into thinking Trump is caving and abandoning you when that's not what happened here. Another brief timeout, an obscene profit break, and we will be right back.
This is the big one. Rush on the EIB network.
Robert J. Mueller, the 14th Esquire, has just asked to bring somebody along with him to his testimony tomorrow, but I didn't get a chance to catch who during the commercial break. But I'll find that out and give you the details. In the meantime, back to the phones we go. This is Malcolm, Southport, North Carolina. Great to have you on the program, sir.
Rush, it's great to talk to you. You know, you are so right about this weather business. I saw the same L on my phone yesterday about this ridiculous storm.
Oh, yeah, it was aimed right at you.
That's right. And we have officially gone from fake news to fake forecasts. This is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, we got hit by Matthew in 16. We got a direct hit from Florence last year. We know what the real deal is. And every time they do this kind of nonsense, fewer and fewer people are going to believe what they have to say, and eventually they're going to cry wolf one too many times.
Maybe. You know, I think I don't think the day is ever going to come when they start forecasting a hurricane that people are not going to believe it. I think it's the exact opposite. I think that's what they know. Now, the theory is that after so many false alarms, people would say, come on, you haven't been right yet. But with these, people can't take a chance. This was just something I've never seen before. And I have been a resident in the so-called Hurricane Alley for 12 years now. 22 years. Gee, 1997. That's incredible. 22 years. So I know this stuff. And I saw something I've never seen. A thunderstorm, a very loosely attached thunderstorm. You couldn't find a squall line. You couldn't find the front. You couldn't find anything that looked like any tropical organization. Was declared a tropical low. And on the map, it was a red L with the hurricane circular icon showing wind direction around it. And then they put out a forecast cone. And the forecast cone started southeast of where we are here in Palm Beach, West Palm Beach area, and the cone went all the way up South Carolina, with the L being plotted to show different dates and times it was going to get there. And the winds, the maximum winds were 30 miles an hour. What is this? 30-mile-an-hour wind gusts happen when a squall line goes through for 10 minutes or so. So they portrayed this thing, then they chart it. They make a forecast cone out of it, showing the South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia area threatened by Wednesday or Thursday. But it never became more than a circled L. It was never going to be more than a thunderstorm. It was a thunderstorm that they plotted and said constituted a tropical low. And I couldn't believe when I saw the cone with this, with the L in it. You don't see a cone until there's a genuine, maybe a definite tropical storm when you've got winds up around 60 to 65, just below 74, which is Category 1 hurricane. But this, well, anyway, that cone is gone. The L is gone. And now there is an X where the cone was just offshore of Cape Canaveral. It was never any. I went out and looked at it last night because it was due to go by my house sometime last night. I said, cool, I want to go look at it. There was some lightning out there. There was not any rain. Whatever it was stayed offshore. I got the radar out and looked at it, and it didn't even look like, it was just green. There was no red or yellow showing intense rain. It was nothing. It was worse than just a little passing shower. But what they got out of it, they plot this thing, and so now this is statistically on the record for hurricane season 2019. And what these people are interested in is making it look like more and more tropical disturbances and tropical storms and hurricanes are because of climate change, man-made climate change. But this is getting desperate now. I mean, to try to create a tropical storm out of a really weak, difficult to find on radar thunderstorm. It wasn't even a thunderstorm. I didn't even hear any thunder. It was a rain shower. It was all offshore. I got to take a break. Just saw the clock. Back in a sec.
Hold back. The news you need to know. Rush on the EIB network.
One thing on a budget deal before I move on here to Mueller. And it's a very important thing. This deal, there cannot be, well, anything can be broken, as you know. But this eliminates any potential budget or government shutdowns over the next year and a half to 2 years. Anyway, greetings. Welcome back. Great to have you. Rush Limbaugh, the EIB network. Now, the big news today. Headline, Justice Department warns Mueller to stay on script at showdown hearing with Congress. This is not what happened. Jerry Nadler, the chairman of the House committee, one of the two committees here that's going to be investigating and interrogating Mueller. This is terrible. This is Trump demanding that Mueller not being able to testify fully. This is showing that they know and they are afraid of Mueller. The Attorney General, William Barr, was just on television. The Attorney General just said that Robert Mueller asked that this letter be written and sent to Congress. Mueller asked for the letter to be written. Now, the headline that you have all seen and that you have seen people reacting to today, Justice Department warns Mueller to stay on script at showdown hearing. That's the New York Times headline. That is not what happened. Robert Mueller requested that this letter be sent because he doesn't really want to testify. He doesn't want any part of this. This is my opinion, my humble estimation. He doesn't want any part of this. He does not want to have to answer anything beyond what is in that report. He can't. He's already specified that there isn't any more. The report says everything that can be said. There was no collusion. He couldn't come to a conclusion on obstruction. There's nothing new to add. He wants the Justice Department to send a letter. He wanted the letter to be written basically to give him backup when he stays within the confines of the report when it comes to his answer. Now, the latest news is that Mueller has asked for a counsel, a lawyer, a member of his team to be sworn in so that he can testify as well. It's a last-minute request to have his deputies named Aaron Zebley sworn in tomorrow in case Mueller needs to answer any questions or Mueller can't answer some questions and needs some help. Now, there are any number of ways interpreting this. One way I would interpret this as something I believe has been the case from the get-go, that Mueller was a name on the masthead. He's almost of counsel, which means in a law firm, of counsel means your name's on the letterhead and you're there to attract clients and customers, but you don't do work anymore. Your career is behind you. You've worked your whole life, so you're of counsel. Your name's on the letterhead, you're a rainmaker. He was a figurehead. Mueller was to give this investigation the imprimatur of character and dignity and honor, given his great reputation as a swamp dweller. The real investigators and the real experts in this are the people who are not going to be testifying, led by Andrew Weissman and any of the other 14 Hillary Clinton supporters, donors, and fundraisers which served as Mueller's investigators. Mueller needs somebody there with him to answer details. Because I don't think Mueller did much real work here. He may have sat in on some interviews, may have conducted a few himself. But this is the way Washington works. By the way, this is not isolated. You know how many of these high-flying, high-priced private sector lawyers who get hired to run blue ribbon investigations, special counsel you know how many of them really do any work? This is a classic. This is a great illustration, in fact, of what high rank in the establishment gets you. You devote your life to the establishment. You devote your life to the club. You do the work when you're young. You do all the work everybody else does when you're young. You rise through the ranks, and as you age and gain more experience, you become figurehead. You become a big name on the letterhead that attracts people, in the case of law firms, high-paying clients. I want to go to that firm. See, Robert Mueller works there. I want to go to that firm. Take your pick. Leon Jaworski works there. I want to go to that firm. Richard Menveniste works there. When these guys haven't done any work in years, but they get paid. Oh, do they get paid? They get to charge whatever hourly rate they want to invent. And then they get to say they were at work X number of hours a day. And they may have been there, but they don't do it. This is one of the perks. One of the perks is being paid handsomely on the basis of your reputation, not on your current work output. This is standard operating procedure. It's one of the ways elitist organizations function. It's just the way of the world. It's the way it's always been. It's one of the reasons there's such resentment for the rich in many cases, because this aspect of it's understood. So I believe Mueller was a figurehead, and the reason he didn't want to take any questions at his press conference that he did a couple months ago is because it's too risky. He did a prepared statement, and that was it. There was no ad-libbing. There was no off the book. There was no off the prompter. There was no off script. So now there's some conflicting news with this. Mark Meadows, Republican member of Congress, North Carolina, tweeted that House Democrats have been holding mock hearings, practicing 5-minute interview clips, setting up a social media war room for the Mueller hearing on the collusion case that closed 4 months ago. I have heard that the Democrats are meeting in private, have been meeting with Mueller. Now, I don't know if this is, I don't know how true this is. I'm sure some of it is. I don't know if they've been meeting with Mueller, but the point is Democrats have been meeting in advance, trying to create soundbite moments. Whereas a member would ask a predetermined question and Mueller would give a predetermined answer, and they're trying to structure the answer so that it falls within the mandate that Mueller not go outside the report, but say something in such a way that will allow the media to report that Mueller let fly a bombshell, that Mueller said something not in the report, that Mueller edited this. The Democrats are trying to set this circumstance and a number of them up with their rehearsals and with their attempt to stage things. This is a recipe for one of the biggest backfires because these people are not smart enough to pull this off. Nadler and Schiff aren't. Nadler and Schiff combined are not smart enough to beat a hamster playing Jeopardy. And they're going to try to pull something like this off. It's going to be really, really tricky out there. Now let's get to the meat and potatoes of this. Mueller asked for the letter. William Barr, the Attorney General, is putting the lie to the New York Times story and the rest of the media. Mueller asked for this Department of Justice letter. The way the Times reports it, Justice Department warned former special counsel Robert Mueller on Monday not to stray beyond the four corners of his report. Associate Deputy Attorney General Bradley Weinsheimer, in a letter to Mueller, said that means any decisions Mueller made or information he uncovered that he did not include in his report will be out of bounds. Mueller asked for this letter. He asked Barr. He asked his buddy, but he asked the DOJ to write this letter to give him cover with Nadler and with Schiff. Don't misunderstand. This does not mean Mueller's become a Trump fan. It means Mueller can't go outside the report. He has testified to it. He has put his name on it. It is what it is. It can't be changed, and it's explicit. There was no collusion, and we couldn't conclude whether the president obstructed justice. This report was written for one reason: to be picked up by Congress and to be used in impeachment hearings. The report cannot. Now, one of the areas of the report that is being focused on here is, and you've heard this, whether or not Mueller would have asked for Trump to be indicted if it weren't for these guidelines that you cannot indict a sitting president. This is going to be one of the areas that Democrats are going to explore. In fact, I think it's going to be the area they're going to try to make news. Now, in helping me make this point, I have here a column that my good buddy Andy McCarthy wrote and submitted to the Fox News website. And his headline, Mueller's testimony will not give Democrats what they crave. Can they handle it? McCarthy, letter of the law guy. He is a former prosecutor, Southern District of New York, SDNY. He is a full-fledged, top-to-bottom, letter of the law guy. He believes Mueller can't, as a matter of law, maintain his reputation. He cannot say anything not in this report. He cannot say anything that is in the report differently than how it's stated in the report, that he's got no maneuverability here. Now, Andy believes that Mueller cannot and will not give any of these Democrats what they crave. The Democrats want Mueller to say that he would have charged Trump with obstruction of justice if it weren't for these guidelines, saying a sitting president may not be indicted. Mueller cannot say that. He cannot answer that question, yes. Mueller cannot say that if it weren't for those guidelines, yes, I would recommend the president be indicted. He can't say that because if he does, he'll be contradicting his report and his statements in the press conference. And he's not going to do that. Mueller is not going to say that he was wrong in the report, and he's not going to say that he lied in his press conference. They want Mueller to admit that if it weren't for those guidelines, he would have recommended Trump be indicted. The thing is, the special counsel law, special counsels do not make such recommendations anyway. The law is that the special counsel turns his report over to his boss, the attorney general, privately. It is not to be made public unless the attorney general decides to. And charging decisions are made by the attorney general, not the special prosecutor. The special counsel may recommend, but he has no decision-making process here. And anyway, Mueller abdicated on the obstruction question in the report. He passed. Here's the real key. This is the real thing here, folks. When Mueller took over the Russia investigation, the collusion investigation, it was May 17th of 2017. Everybody knew by that time that there had been no collusion. There had been no Trump hacking of the DNC, no Russian hacking, that there had not been any Trump-Russia collusion. When Mueller took the job, he knew that. There had been no collusion to interfere in the election between Trump and Russia. So in essence, what Mueller assumed was more an obstruction than a collusion investigation was his starting point. Mueller knew when he took the job, as I've said over and over, there was no collusion. Days prior to Mueller taking the gig, according to Andrew McCabe, the FBI had opened an obstruction investigation against the president based on the firing of Comey on May the 9th. Comey fired May the 9th. Mueller named May 17th. It was Comey's firing that got everybody all hot to bother on obstruction. And that's what Mueller began investigating. Point is, Mueller knew there was no collusion on May 17th. Yet, what did Mueller do? he put the country through a 2-year hellhole investigation. And after that, after 2 years and all the money and all the subpoenas and all the interviews, Mueller declined to charge Trump with obstruction. He cleared Trump on collusion, but did not answer. After 2 years, did not answer the question, did Trump obstruct justice firing Comey? Now, the Democrats can wish all they want, and they can try to micromanage all they want, but Mueller cannot say now that he would have indicted Trump for obstruction if it weren't for the guidelines, because the reports refused to take a position. He refused to do it in the press conference. He can't contradict himself. The Democrats are trying to set up a circumstance where it looks like he is when he isn't. They're trying for that perfect soundbite to make it look like Mueller thinks Trump is guilty of sin and would have charged him if it weren't for guidelines elsewhere. That's, I'm convinced, what they want to create, the illusion of tomorrow. Now, let me skip forward. No, let me take commercial break here, because I think the obstruction angle is where the Democrats are going to try to revive and revise Mueller's testimony without really doing it. They want to create this illusion. I'll explain further when we get back.
In the next Limbaugh Letter, Rush unearths the dirty secrets of the big tech left-wing social media.
I spoke with James O'Keefe of Project Veritas. He has bombshell evidence from a high-ranking Google employee that they are colluding with Democrats to shape the outcome of the 2020 election.
Get the explosive interview in the August Limbaugh Letter at RushLimbaugh.com.
You're listening to the EIB Network.
Okay, here we go. Soundbite 93 on the list. A lot of soundbites today. Here's William Barr, Fox News Channel, outnumbered overtime with Harris Faulkner. She's got the clip of Barr talking with a reporter today, and this is how this sounded.
In conversations with the department, his staff was reiterating that was their position, and they asked us for guidance in writing to explain or to tell them what our position was. So we responded in writing. The department sent the guidance they had requested.
So Mueller actually requested some guidance. Secondly, what do you think of Congressman Nadler lashing out saying this was arrogant to send this letter?
Well, he was misinformed as to the facts.
Thirdly, on Congress, any reaction to them holding you in contempt?
No.
Nothing?
Goes with the territory.
All right, so what do you think of this idiot Nadler lashing out at you, saying it was arrogant, saying, well, he's misinformed as to the facts. So Robert J. Mueller, the 14th Esquire, requested this letter from the Department of Justice limiting the scope of his testimony. The Democrats thought that Trump was putting shackles on Mueller. Now, this obstruction of justice angle, this is where the Democrats have focused on impeachment. They focused on indicting Trump. They are convinced that he did because Mueller didn't say yes or no. In the report, Mueller said, we didn't come to a decision. He punted. He left that to Barr. Barr said, okay, I looked at it. There's no obstruction. The Democrats want Mueller to come in and basically say, well, yeah, I thought there was, but we couldn't charge him because of the guidelines. Well, if that was the case, then why take the case in the first place? If you can't charge him, why do any of this? If you believe that a president, sitting president, cannot be indicted, why do any of this? Well, we know the answer. You do this because you hate Trump and you want to participate in the effort to get rid of him, but you can't get because he hadn't done anything here. So you prepare a report that is made to order for Congress to use in impeachment proceedings. So the obstruction angle cannot be revived unless Mueller says that after carefully weighing the evidence, he decided there was a prosecutable obstruction case against Trump, but that he was prohibited by guidelines from indicting. But Mueller has already asserted in the report and in his press conference that this is not what happened. I am convinced, I'm going to be very eager to see, I think this particular area is where the Democrats are going to try to make news with a constructed question and answer that will sound like it is new. It will sound like it is different from the report, but it won't be because Mueller can't do that. This is where the Democrats are going to attempt to revise Mueller's testimony. They're going to try to find a way to have Mueller say something that could be interpreted. Yeah, he did something I would indict him for if I could have. That's what they're looking for. I guarantee it. To the phones here in mere moments. Do you fear that somebody can read your email? Do you fear that somebody can track wherever you are surfing or visiting on the internet via your internet browser? When you surf the web, do you worry that people can read your tweets? Well, a lot of people have this concern. A lot of people think that somebody's able to spy on them. In certain circumstances, you're more right than you know. And those circumstances largely involve free Wi-Fi areas like airports, airport bars, coffee shops. Because I will guarantee you something. For all the people that are in a coffee shop or wherever there's public Wi-Fi, the odds are that somebody's going to be in there that looks like an average, run-of-the-mill, everyday person with nothing better to do than sit in a coffee shop. But what they really are is a hacker. And they are either for ill-intended purpose or just for the fun of it. They're trying to crack everybody else's computer in the coffee shop or in the bar or wherever the public Wi-Fi is, just to see if they can do it. And if they can, what they might do is plant what's called malware somewhere on your device. And you won't even know what's happened. And malware takes many forms. One of the worst kinds of malware is an innocent-looking link or something in your system that you will eventually click on, a link or a name or something. And when you click on it, guess what it does? It sends, say, your entire address book to the hacker, or it sent whatever he wants on your computer. It could send your email accounts. It could send, if you've got your credit card information stored somewhere, it could send that. It's hideous. And there are people do this for the intent of stealing your stuff or just for the fun, quote unquote, of being able to hack. So the thing that you need to do, I mean, you don't want to restrict yourself from using Wi-Fi whenever you're away from home. So what can you do? Well, you need to make yourself be invisible. You need to make it so that any of these hacker-type people can't see you. They can't see your online connection. They can see you using the machine, but they can't see your machine in action. How do you do this? It's not hard. It's called VPN, Virtual Private Network. And it hides your connection from your device to your ISP, to your internet service provider. It literally makes it invisible. It creates a special and unique pathway that only you are on. It gives you your own highway, and nobody else is on it. There are no stop signs. There's no detours or no off-ramps. And nobody knows the highway exists. Now, a lot of VPNs out there, virtual private networks. Norton is the one that we think is best here. They just experts in hardware security for your device, online security. They've been at this since before there was the internet. Now, Norton Secure VPN is easy to use. It's an app. Looks just like an app. You download the app and you log into it once and you're in the tunnel. You're on your private highway that nobody can see. You can activate it whenever you want. When you're at home and you know your network is secure, you don't have to run to the VPN. You can, but when you're away from home, you can run your connection through the Norton VPN and nobody will see it. It's better than a hotspot. It's better than an alternative email address. There's nothing better than an encrypted, by the way, invisible connection. You are protecting yourself from these hackers on public Wi-Fi. You're eliminating the possibility they can plant malware on your device. It's seamless. You just install it with a download, log in one time, and you let it run in the background. Doesn't require days of setup or even hours of setup, minutes of setup. Doesn't require any of that. And it's inexpensive, $3.33 a month for the first year, and you can connect 5 different devices to that particular VPN. The address here is norton.com/VPN. 5 devices, handhelds, mobile units, laptops, desktops, whichever ones you want to use. $3.33 a month. Norton.com/VPN. You do not need to be an IT expert to use this. It also features any number of servers that you can, even while you're invisible, you can direct your connection to come from Belarus, to come from Russia. You can make it look like you're colluding with the Russians if you want to let somebody see you. It's a lot of fun. You can route your connection through any server, like 500 of them, I think, throughout the world. But it's the utmost in privacy and security. Norton.com/VPN. Now, folks, there's a lot of VPNs out there now. Whatever you do, don't go for one that's free. If you get one that's free, somebody's making money off of you somehow, and it requires you being seen for targeted advertising or something. Don't do one that's free. And I don't think you're going to find a better one than Norton VPN. It's norton.com/VPN is the address. Here is Dave, Panama City, Florida. Great to have you, sir. Hi.
Rush, wow. Faithful follower of yours for 28 years. Can't believe I finally made it through. So
I'm glad you did.
Well, I've wanted to say this for a long time, but dittos.
Thank you.
So here's my question, comment for you. I'm assuming that Mueller's going to be under oath tomorrow. Is that correct?
Yes.
Well, I've heard a bunch of different reports, even Devin Nunes saying that he believes that Mueller or his associates have been meeting or communicating secretly with Democrats. So my question is, couldn't the first Republican that gets to ask him questions ask him very directly if he or any member of his group has been in communication of any type with any Democrat on the committee or their associates regarding their testimony?
Well, now this is an interesting question, because when this New York Times story hit today that the DOJ was limiting the scope of the inquiry to the report, it was the Republicans who were first angered. You know why? They want to ask Mueller why he ignored the dossier. They want to ask Mueller why every one of his investigators was a Hillary donor. They want to ask Mueller all kinds of questions about the actual collusion between the Hillary campaign and Russia and why he'd look at it. And now they can't. And they're ticked off. Mueller did not want these questions. That's why he asked for the letter, I'm convinced. So whether or not the Republicans can now ask, have you been conspiring with Democrats on the construction of various answers to specific questions? I think Mueller could say, I'm not allowed to answer that question. It's beyond the scope of my report.
Well, wouldn't that be tantamount to saying yes? I mean, because if the answer was no,
well,
to me, you would just say no.
Kind of like taking the fifth is a tantamount admission that you did it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well,
look, I guess they could do that. This has upset the Republicans, this letter at first. Now, they're also among those to find out that Mueller actually requested it. I think they now realize why. Mueller did not want these questions about Hillary and Christopher Steele and a dossier and any of that. And the Democrats want all kinds of stuff that's not in the... They want Mueller to say... The Democrats have constructed a scenario here where there's lots more that Mueller didn't say. For what reason or not, we don't know. Mueller didn't say it because they wouldn't let him say it. Mueller didn't say it because... But they have created a scenario in the media that Mueller knows a lot more than what he said. He knows Trump did it. He knows it, despite what his reports. He knows that Trump did it. And if you read between the lines, Mueller's admitting it. That's what they're out there saying and trying to convince as many people of it as possible. And the reports I've heard about Democrat staff meeting with representatives of Mueller, if that's true, then I'm convinced what's happening is an attempt to create specific questions and answers that generate a soundbite moment. Very simple, one sentence. I'll give you an example. Like Mueller said in his press conference, if we had found evidence the president didn't do it, we would have said so. That's all it took for the media to run with Mueller had admitted something new. That Mueller knows Trump did it. We didn't say he didn't do it. Well, that's when the debate began, or not the debate, but the effort began to educate the American people. Look, prosecutors don't exonerate. They don't. Prosecutors either get the goods or they don't. If they don't charge, that is it. They don't run around and say what they almost found or what they think they found, because that's against the law. It is against protocol and guidelines. And therefore, again, Mueller tomorrow cannot say anything along the lines of, we're convinced the president obstructed, but we just couldn't put the final nail in the coffin, and so we had to conclude. He can't say that. If you don't charge somebody, this is true at any level of prosecution, federal, state, township. If you don't charge, you do not accuse. That is the epitome of unfairness of the state against a powerless individual. The state's power is so awesome, so immense. The charging power is so immense that if you don't use it because you don't have the evidence and you can't get a conviction, you are not permitted to say what you think the perp did, but you can't prove it. You can't do that. That's essentially what they want Mueller to do tomorrow. And I think they're trying to maneuver questions and answers that will produce that soundbite result that the media can then use, whether it's true or not, to say that Mueller did, in fact, offer something new. Because that's all this is about. The fact that there's something Mueller didn't say that he knows. The fact that Mueller knows a lot more than he could legally say. They want Mueller to tell them what it is. They're convinced that Mueller knows Trump colluded. He just doesn't have the evidence. They want Mueller to say something that can be interpreted as that. And they want it in Mueller's words, not theirs. They are trying to revive this. The people responsible for this are hell-bent on getting an impeachment proceeding going. This is what tomorrow is essentially all about. And obviously, if we're to believe Barr, Mueller doesn't want much to do with this. Asking for the limitations from a Department of Justice letter so that he doesn't have to say it himself. Anyway, how the Republicans choose to deal with this, it'll be interesting to see, too, because I know they're loaded for bear. And they were looking this, since it's going to happen, they were looking at it as an opportunity to expose Mueller on the bias of his investigation. Now they may not be able to go there.
America's Anchorman, Rush, on the EIB Network.
Rồi.
Chào các con.
Chào thầy.
Thầy sẽ dạy các con một cái môn mà rất là nổi tiếng, các con phải biết được là con phải dự được cái FPD ở nước ngoài làm sao.
Đủ ánh sáng, đủ ánh sáng luôn kìa.
Từ đó thì phải học công dân. Hôm nay thầy chỉ cho con cái từ cơ bản. Ví dụ cái từ này gọi là từ lay dung. Lay dung rồi u.
Rửa quạt luôn, rửa quạt. Thầy, nói anh đi hỏi cái lay dung khác như lay boy.
Lay dung là
chơi cái phòng.
Còn lay boy. Lay
boy là gì chơi gì boy?
Lay room ru gì thầy?
Lay room ru là cái lực mà phòng này muốn chơi sân chơi. Đây nè, welcome tức là cơm thì chúng ta nấu nó càng well càng ngon. Cơm nấu càng well càng ngon. Everyone là mỗi người nấu cơm càng well càng ngon. Ok, are you okay? Ok, are you?
Vú ok. Tiếp.
Lo ai là gì ta?
Lo.
Thầy kỳ thầy. Chữ chữ mơ mà thầy.
Oh, sorry.
Lóe lên.
Bị lé.
Sorry các con, có là chữ be. Be considerate nha. Be considerate nha.
Considerate là gì thầy?
Mấy thằng nào mà BD á. Là consider đó. Nha. Ok, bỏ qua. Mà chắc dịch hết thầy, chắc hết luôn đi tay quá.
Thầy.
Em vòng cuối đi thầy.
Vòng cuối đúng không?
Vòng cuối.
Have fun.
Have fun là gì vậy thầy?
Rồi sao thầy?
Phân đó con, phân đó.
Cái gì con?
Phân đó.
là bị bóng rồi đi phân hả?
Hay lắm, tức là hay và phân.
Chuẩn bị ghê gửi quà.
Hay và phân.
Hay xong rồi.
Hay và phân.
Hay là đi
Hay là nó hay là
vậy nè, hay là hay
Phân hay đi phân.
phân
hay phân hay
Phân hay phân là cái gì phân?
BCD and say
là cái gì hả thầy?
Chẳng biết.
Thầy xong chưa? Xong chưa?
Không chưa thầy, chúng ta kết thúc cuộc này đi, chúng ta kết thúc cái hộp này đi. Thầy chưa có tắm á.
Thôi thầy đi tắm đi thầy đi tắm đi thầy.
Cái này khó quá.
Thầy sao em nãy giờ em thấy cái mùi gì đó.
Thì nói là nó được mà cậu thầy á.
Thầy ơi.